And as I was reaching down to my partner, I was driving, my partner was in the passenger seat. I was reaching down to grab some napkins. My window got bashed, his window got bashed. Put your head down, don't look up. Pop the trunk, pop the trunk, pop the trunk. I was like, whoa. So my partner, he's the veteran. He's like, just do what he says. It's not our stuff. We work, but it's insured. It's not our stuff. Just pop the trunk. So I popped the trunk. They took everything in the back seat, our laptops, everything, plus I think it was like, it's well over $500,000 of jewelry in there. It was 2 backpacks full, and left, gone.
We love the San Gabriel Valley. There are some amazing people and businesses here, and we think they deserve the spotlight. Welcome to the SGV Master Key Podcast. We'll have on the people that make the SGV great. We'll find out what makes them tick, their ups and downs, their history, and we're going to have fun doing it. This is the SGV Master Key Podcast. And now your hosts, Scott Warmoth and Russell Mano.
All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the SGV Master Key Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We're excited to bring you another guest from right here in the San Gabriel Valley. We document and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. If that's the kind of content that you're interested in, please consider subscribing. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. Sit back, relax, and we got another exciting guest for you today. Well, you go to these events, Scott, and you meet people. I remember, maybe 2 years ago, you were sort of saying, they're exhausting for you, and but you still find your way out to get out into the community, right?
I guess I grew up that way. My father was always in the community, so it was nothing that I had to learn. It wasn't taught to me. It was just I grew up that way. So yeah, I think a lot of people get tired. There are some people that really like going out and being in front of the crowd and playing that. I'm not so good at it, but yeah, I still force myself. Maybe that's the best way to put it at this point. I do get a little bit tired of they call it the rubber chicken circuit. It's like, yeah, because you always have chicken meals. Oh no. And so it becomes like rubber chicken after a while.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah.
That's funny.
But there are some people that really just excel at, just really love that type of environment.
Well, for some time now that I've known you, you would refer to some events like, a buildup or having this anxiety, and then you would go to it and you'll feel better about it. And I think recently we were, talking about the nonprofit event now in September, and you're like, oh, I hope you don't ruin my whole year until then. So it's sort of insight into who you are looking forward to or not looking forward to these kinds of events.
Oh, it's okay. Are you going to have me give a speech?
Oh, well, that's right. Yes.
Then, it's like, okay, you've just ruined, the rest of my life, until that event. Yeah. That's what I really don't like is the getting up in public.
How truthful is that though? Because I watched your speech at the Hobie Awards, and you looked really composed, and you looked actually like you were enjoying, speaking up there.
Oh no, what I say is true. I hired a speech coach before I gave that speech.
Wow.
Yeah, and I knew about that speech like 4 months before, and so it was just horrible. But I hired a speech coach. How do you speak? How do you prepare? And it helped. But I can tell you, I tried, but I couldn't get it out of my mind. Mm-hmm. Always. I have to give this speech on that day.
Wow. Well, public speaking is like second only to death, right? In people's fears. So
is that right?
Yeah. It's really high up there.
Wow.
Well, we're mentioning this because you went to an event in Rosemead, I believe, maybe a few...
Rosemead Chamber of Commerce event, yeah, annual event.
Right. And you met someone from the city of Duarte, which I don't know much about. I know that there's a golf course there. I know it's adjacent to Bradbury, but beyond that, I don't really know much about it. And I'm excited to learn something about that and this person. And I know that if we want to know more about the San Gabriel Valley, You can always check out San Gabriel Valley Now, your source for city news, announcements, events, special savings, and everything SGV. Check them out on Instagram, sgv.now, and read their new SGV Now magazine on their website, sgvnow.com. We'll introduce our guest. His name is Vinh Truong. He's a council member for the city of Duarte and also the mayor pro tem. He will be the mayor next year. Vinh, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a little chat before this show happened, and it was an interesting, I guess, stroll down memory lane of growing up here in the San Gabriel Valley. But what is your connection to the San Gabriel Valley, Vinh?
My connection to the San Gabriel Valley can stem from family restaurants, sewing factories in El Monte. I was born in, it's not technically San Gabriel Valley, but I was born in the hospital in Chinatown, the French hospital at that time. And I have cousins that live here in the San Gabriel Valley. I feel like I lived here in the San Gabriel Valley because every weekend when our parents would go shopping, San Gabriel Valley was where all the Chinese supermarkets were. And I'd wake up in the morning at the same time as they do. We'll go grab dim sum and then do our shopping for the rest of the week.
You were born here in Chinatown. And where are your family from?
Very interesting story. Family, if you're talking about my grandparents were from China. My parents were born there. Due to the war, when Japan invaded China, they had to migrate over to Vietnam. And at that time, that's where the spelling of my last name derived from, because they have to kind of blend in with the Vietnamese, kind of camouflage, not kind of be known, not stand out. So the Truong last name was, the spelling was changed to what it is now, Truong, to have it look more, I guess, Vietnamese. And I'm the youngest of 8. So my brothers and sisters all were born in Vietnam. Because of the war again in Vietnam, my parents were fortunate enough to be sponsored over here to the States. And they came in 78. They landed in Kentucky, out of all places. Worked on a farm for about half a year to 8 months. My dad was like, this is not it. Because my dad was a business owner back in Vietnam. He owned multiple businesses, and coming to the States, working on a farm, it was very different. And got a call one day from our cousins, and they were out here and lived in Glendale, and kind of convinced my dad to pick the whole family up from Kentucky, and they jumped on a Greyhound and ended up here in Glendale. I think that was in 79, 80.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you were born,
I was born
after they came here.
Yeah, after they got here in 80. I was born in 81. It's called the French Hospital. It was changed over to Alliance Pacific, Allied Pacific, and that was probably the only Chinese-speaking staff in the whole San Gabriel Valley area, right? And I say that Chinatown wasn't really San Gabriel Valley. Chinatown is part of LA, but that was the place where all of the immigrants were going to first back in the 70s. That hospital had a lot of Chinese-speaking staff, and that's where they chose to go.
I would have guessed Garfield Hospital also had a lot of Chinese staff, but I don't know at that time. Now I know that there's a huge Chinese staff there.
That was the early 80s. It was probably starting to develop that way.
Right.
But Chinatown did have the history of Chinese people there, and also a lot of the refugees from Vietnam started moving there.
You mentioned something about the spelling of your name. I didn't quite catch. So is it different? Would it have been different?
Yeah. So if Chinese, Vietnamese, when we talk about Chinese, we talk about Cantonese, Mandarin. It sounds all the same. The spelling is a little bit different, right? So if my parents would have kept it the way it originally was, I think it would be Cheung.
Oh,
that would be the Cantonese spelling.
That would be the Cantonese spelling. Yeah. But because of having to migrate to another country and kind of blend in with everybody else, they changed it over to Truong.
That would be the Vietnamese spelling of Chung.
Yeah.
In other words, the people in Vietnam can identify a Chinese surname.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they would identify Truong as a Chinese name.
Because if it's a true Truong in Vietnamese, it would have probably been Tran or something, Tran or something like that. So Truongs were more of, you're kind of from China to Vietnam.
I had a friend last name Truong. I knew a guy his first name was Truong, like Truong. So this is a very familiar name to me. I just never knew that. And I had friends with last name Chung also. Mm-hmm. But wow. So you're the youngest of 8.
I'm the youngest of 8. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You were born in Chinatown, but then you said you moved to Glendale?
My family lived in Glendale. When they had me in 81, I lived in Glendale for about 4 years and moved over to the city of Duarte, 1985.
And were there a lot of Vietnamese Chinese Vietnamese in Duarte at that time?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Okay. At all. So what was it like there?
For me growing up, it was pretty interesting. Being the only Chinese family, not that there wasn't Asian people in Duarte, there were a very small percentage of Asian people. Majority would be Southeast Asian, like Filipino. And I remember there was like one Korean family that I went to school with. There was a kid that was Korean there. But it was quite interesting because being the only Chinese kid there, it was kind of having an adjustment. Although I was born here in the States, at home, culture, language, everything was Chinese Vietnamese. And for the first 5 years, that's all I knew. And then going into elementary school, being in kindergarten, it's like, wow. I was told that I used to speak pretty good Vietnamese. If you asked me to say something in Vietnamese now, I probably wouldn't be able to. It'd be very hard for me. So going into kindergarten, I had an accent. I didn't really fit in with the rest of the kids. Even at that young age, I've experienced a little bit of racism. And it was a little bit adjustment. But it wasn't something that I was comfortable with. And you could say that I didn't excel in school because of that adjustment. It wasn't until maybe middle school where I started seeing more Asian kids.
How were your parents during this time? Were they experiencing the same kind of problems?
My parents were very typical, keep your head down to the ground, do what you got to do, mind your own business. Don't worry about anything else. Just worry about yourself and your family. If they were, I wouldn't have known because my dad really wasn't that type to kind of share and express his feelings as much. And I'm sure that's typical when you're talking to a lot of Asian families. The parents don't really kind of share their feelings and kind of they don't get emotional with their kids. So I wasn't sure, but I hear stories once in a while, of frustration of situation while driving or at a supermarket, but it wasn't constant. I think they made it a point to stay around our community, the same people. They didn't really like to step out of their comfort zone. Your
father was a businessman in Vietnam, a farmer in Kentucky, and what did he do once he got here?
He got here, he ventured off in a couple of things. We tried to start a pho restaurant off of Garvey and in El Monte. I think it was Garvey and Chico Street, and it was like a little spot in the corner. He and his friends decided to kind of venture into the restaurant business and try to do a pho restaurant. That was short-lived. From there, he worked with his friend who actually is, I don't know if you would know, his friend is a manufacturer of noodles, egg noodles, chow mein noodles, and they're here local in San Gabriel Valley, right up the street on San Gabriel, right next to Mission. They're called Man Phong Noodle Company.
I don't know that.
Yeah,
so very close to here.
Very, very close to here. Yes, I remember used to go into the warehouse and see my dad work and stuff like that. So he helped his friend out quite a bit. Worked there quite a while. He also ventured and did some carpentry work. More of that carpentry work was helping out families and friends. Just do a little bit of remodeling and readjusting in the house. Fit an extra bedroom here and there. Things were a little different back then, where you kind of have to fit a couple families into one house. So yeah, that's what he would do, kind of helping out the family members.
Well, speaking of fitting family members, like what was life with, all your siblings and your parents in the house?
I was the youngest of 8, so you can imagine how many times I was told to go there, go get me this, go get me that, and go wash the dishes and do the laundry and sweep the floors.
I actually thought that was going to be the opposite, because I would have imagined that the baby, like, it's the treatment, like, you get all the special treatment.
You would think. I thought so too, but for my mom, I got that. From my dad and the rest of my siblings, a couple of my sisters were like, very protective of me. But as far as my brother, it's interesting because there's a huge age gap. So my oldest brother is about 62, 63, and I'm 42.
20 years.
20 years gap from my brothers. And the closest male sibling to me is, I think, about a 10-year gap.
Oh, wow.
And so I grew up the closest with my sisters. I was the youngest, and I was the youngest boy, and it was 2 boys, my oldest sister, another boy, and then the rest were girls, and then me. So the age gap was pretty far from my brothers, and the closest one was my sister, about a 4-year age gap, and she was protective of me, and she looked out for me a lot, but it was go do this, go do that, go do this.
Oh. So you're growing up in Duarte, and you somehow made it through that experience in elementary school, feeling there's some racism, discrimination. Did that create any bitterness, anger in you during that time, or?
You know what, and I have to thank my parents and attribute them to this, because I have an open mind, because I know that there's no bitterness or anger, because back then it was something new to everybody. When you talk about immigrating to a new country, you're not the only one that's trying to get used to where you're at, your new home. You have people that have been here for a long time that's trying to get used to people that are coming in that are new. So was there frustration? And at that time, was there a little bit of anger because, we just didn't know? Yes, of course. But thinking back to it now, if we were educated correctly about situations that were going on, I probably wouldn't have faced that type of discrimination. So was I bitter? No. I honestly, some of the kids that I got in fights with because they said ching chong and slanted eyes to me, I am actually friends with them to this day. And being young and adolescent, you only know what you're taught. So I can't hold it. I can't hold any grudge or any bitterness against that.
Sure. Well, before the show, your name, Vin, we were talking about that, and I said, internally, I didn't say it to you at the moment, but I said, oh, that's cool that you have kept that name, because many of my elementary school friends that I grew up with, I think from 7th to 8th grade, or maybe 8th to 9th grade, around there, I just came back, and now they were all, a different name. And even our previous guest was a friend of mine, changed his name from Kim to Kenny. And so I was just asking you about that. And you said we can get into it here. So do you want to share about your name?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my parents, they got sponsored, and they ended up in Kentucky when they came to the States. And because you're supposed to fulfill a certain period of time, I guess, with their sponsors, because my dad wasn't able to do that, he was able to get people, somebody to vouch for and sponsor over here to come to LA. I'm so sad I forgot the last name, but when my parents came, my mom was pregnant with me, and she gave birth to me in 81. They mentioned, like, hey, it'd be a good idea to kind of give him an Americanized name, so it'd be easier for people to pronounce his name when he goes to school, and kind of feel like he's more American. So the name, and to this day, my siblings, my brothers and sisters, they still all call me this. So the American name was Steven, Steven. But on documents, my dad kept Vin, Vinh. And during, I would say, all through up until my teens, and to this day, my siblings still call me that. But my cousins and everything, they still all call me Steven. But up until my teens, I'm like, I was Vin at school, but Steven outside. And I just decided, like, it's too much to explain when somebody asks you what your name is, and decided to say, you know what, the authenticity of it, and I'm just Vin, right? Vin. And it makes it simple. I don't have to go through a whole story of why I have two names. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I really know what it's like to have to explain a name. My last name is combination hyphenated of my mom's first husband's last name and my dad's last name. There's a space and no hyphen.
Oh.
So you can imagine that, right? Like that's the legal spelling of my last name.
Oh, wow.
And people, I mean, is that your middle name? What's your last name? How come this? Like it's always been a horrible mess. So I understand what that must be like. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So where does your journey go after high school?
So it's actually during high school is when, like, some, vivid memories that I have of, like, turning points was during high school. My family, we were, low class, middle class. Dad had to work 2 jobs, and your typical immigrant family. We were on government assistance and going through the school system. I didn't have the nice shoes and the clothes and all that stuff like that. So you would get that typical, being made fun of because of the stuff that you wear, the shoes that you had. I kind of got a little bit sad at some point where I wasn't, I didn't have the same shoes as this guy, or I didn't have the same clothes as my friend. So about 16, when I was able to get a worker's permit, I got a job. I got a job at Sprint, the long distance company. That building's no longer Sprint, but it's right off the 10 freeway between Rosemead and Temple City. It's right over there. They used to be Sprint long distance service, and I got a job there as telemarketing at the age of 16. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because at that time I told my dad to go ahead and I'm getting a job so you could take me off of government assistance. I know you're getting whatever it is for me. I will pay you that money, and so I can go get a job and work, and you don't have to get in trouble by receiving money from me, because now I have a W-2. And at 16, that's when I started. And at that time, I wasn't very... as far as education in school, I wasn't that very good, and I didn't really excel at it. A part of it was being treated a certain way by teachers as well. So, what they say when you're a kid, the best thing to do to a kid is kind of give them confidence and kind of praise and help through the process. I didn't get that much, so I was more focused on, how am I going to get myself out of the situation so I could go buy nice shoes like this guy or buy nice clothes like this guy? So I decided to just finish my school, did some homeschooling, went to continuation school, finished it all up, and then focused on working. About a year and a half into working, then I decided maybe I'll go into PCC. So I went to PCC for about a year and a half. It just working in school. Again, I wasn't the person that excelled in school too much, so I kind of gave that up and just focused directly on working. And I was, before our cell phones, I was that guy who called your house during dinner time to speak to your parents about, hi, how are you doing? My name is Vin. I'm calling from Sprint Long Distance Service. Hope I'm not bothering you during dinner time, but I just wanted to let you know that you're currently, and we, the whole telemarketing spiel. And geez, I think I was doing that for 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good, lucrative industry at that time.
You were paid on an incentive basis?
I was paid hourly wages plus incentives, yes. Yeah. It was, you would reach a number of sales, and then your hourly wage would jump up certain brackets, and so on and so forth.
So you really were trained how to handle different kind of responses, and
definitely
you learned to really talk to people.
Yes, I kind of honed in on my communication skills.
Yeah.
During that time I was doing telemarketing. Responses, I had many, and good or bad, it was a lot.
You were ready.
I was kind of built for the position I'm in today, right? Because being council member, dealing with constituents' calls and issues, and some are nice, some aren't, but But
that's good training, isn't it? I mean, you have to listen to what the person is saying so that you know how to respond.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I commend you for that that position. I can never do that. I think more it's because like there's going to be so many angry people on the other end. And
There was.
yeah, I mean, you must have had a lot of like really thick skin and the ability to just brush off all this stuff.
I can tell you in the beginning, it bothered me a lot, actually. But because I had that focus of, I have a job, I got to keep this job. I have to make money because I want to buy nice shoes and buy nice clothes. I would have to give all the praises to my then manager at Sprint, which is Kevin. He was nice Japanese guy. He had a Japanese accent, but he knew how to kind of keep my confidence and mold me a little bit. And he would hear the frustration. We would do role playing an hour every day, and he would come with different scenarios all the time, different objections. And from that point, I think it was about 2 weeks of doing something like that, and it kind of got me a little bit more comfortable. I started seeing sales come in. He was more confident in me, and I stayed in the industry. He went to start off his own long distance service, kind of like a branch off. A reseller hired me on as a manager. Managed a team of 8 in my early 20s, like 21. I was a manager. I got to say I made pretty decent money at that time. So, and just being young, wanting to have fun and enjoy life and buy nice shoes and clothes. That's have none of that money that I was making back then no more.
What were the nice shoes?
Obviously Jordans,
Okay.
Nikes. Nikes was it. Nikes were the thing, and I think the Adidas, the shell toes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny. My first desire to earn money to buy something were Jordans.
Yeah, it was because it's my brother's fault. He had the nice, I think there were 6s or 7, the black and reds with the 2 holes on the tongue.
Oh, that's the first one that I bought. That's the first one that I bought.
That was the reason why I said I wanted the nice shoes, was because I saw those. He said he'll get me a pair, but to this day he hasn't got me a pair yet. So I'm still holding him to that.
Oh man, yeah. My mom used to give me like $10 to wash her car, and then maybe I washed my friend's mom's car once or something. But I remember that. Yeah, I think they cost at that time $120.
Yeah, it was really cheap at that time. Imagine if you still had that. It would be a pretty penny today.
Yeah. Well, so did you get any training to manage these people? I'm just curious. As a 20-something-year-old?
No, I didn't actually. But I think that he saw, because he groomed me to be able to overcome objectives over the phone, and saw that I think I had this natural gift as being a communicator and being very personable. I meet people, I have friends, people like me, I like people. I'm not that type where I'm not standoffish. I'm very upfront, and he saw that I was able to connect a lot. And, he gave me that opportunity to be able to manage a group of 7 to 8 people, and caveat was a lot of them were my friends, and some of them were one of my sisters was working there too. So,
well, maybe that makes it even harder at times.
yeah, at times it did. But I think the hours for telemarketing, it wasn't a 9 to 5. It was more of like a 2 in the afternoon to 9 p.m. 9 p.m. would be the cutoff. You can't call anybody on the West Coast after 9 o'clock. So we would start at 2 in the afternoon. We'll go all the way up to 9 o'clock at night. And a lot of this was people's second jobs. And so it was pretty easy to kind of, here's the objective. You write it on a board. Everybody's talents and what they're capable of, and you put a number on a board and they try to hit it.
If you could reduce or say what was your management style, or what was your greatest strength as a leader at that time, what would it be?
Scott, listen to what it is that they are telling you, so that you can find a common ground to be able to explain how to overcome what the obstacle is. Because I think that it's really easy to tell, you should do this, you should do that. Coming from your point of view, not knowing the other person's point of view, it may or may not work. But I think listening is the most important thing, so you can find a common denominator to try to help them overcome whatever obstacle it is that they have.
Yeah. That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Well, so Vin, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today?
Well, I brought my my dad's Buddha. So from as far as I can remember when I was a kid, he had this.
Can you describe for the listener?
Okay, so this is a jade Buddha with a gold kind of back plating with the hook where you could connect to a chain. It's like a jade pendant, Buddha shaped. I'm sure a lot of people know or seen what this. If they see it, they know what this is. The significance of this was, as far as I can remember, since I was, I'd say 5 or 6, he's had this, and I always remember he used to wear it. He wore it everywhere. You can kind of tell it's really beat up. It has a couple marks here, and on the chest it's kind of dented and chipped. And when he passed away in 2015 from cancer, my mom decided to kind of disperse his jewelry, and she gave me this along with another pendant that I'm wearing of his, because I used to play with it. I used to always tell my mom that I wanted that. How come all my brothers have something like that, but I don't? And so I've always wanted what he had. And at that time, this was a pretty big piece back in, the late 80s, early 90s. I'm like, wow, that's a pretty big piece. And so I've always said I wanted it. And so when he passed away, she decided to give me this, along with the other pendant that goes along with it. And the other pendant, I have it on me now. It's just a gold plate that's a rooster. And Chinese zodiac, I was born in the year of the rooster. So it was very odd for me I was thinking, he never told me this. I never knew what it was until my mom gave it to me. I'm just thinking like, why was he wearing a rooster pendant? To this day, I don't know. But I have this now. Every time I bring it out, my son wants to look at it. He's like, Dad, is that mine? Can I have it? I was like, no, this is Grandpa's. I don't know if you can have it, but this is Grandpa's. He had it for a long time. I always wanted it. So when he passed away, Grandma decided to give it to me. This to me means the struggles and accomplishments that he was able to overcome, and bringing a family from overseas, from Vietnam, on a boat all the way here to the States, and being able to do pretty well for himself. If you include my kids, he probably has like 17 grandkids. All his kids married, well, with the exception of my sister, she chooses to be single, but married, has kids, and I want to say 50% of my siblings work for the government. So with that in itself, it's a pretty big accomplishment, and it tells me one thing. It tells me when I look at this, or even when I brought it out today, was whatever it is that I'm trying to do and accomplish, it's always for the family, and it's always to be able to continue to keep the tradition, and always remember how hard it was for my family to be here. So that those days where I feel like I just want to give up because everything is so stressful, or I feel like nothing is being done, that I look at this, there's a lot of things that can be done.
When did your father get that?
I think when I was about 7 years old, 7 or 8, because that's when I remember seeing. I remember vividly. He'd have it around his neck and wear it, and around the house, and I'm always like, wow, that's big. Wow, that's nice. Like, I want that. And then I see my older brother has one, my second brother has one, and then my third brother has one, and I think my parents bought them theirs, and I was just always like, where's mine?
Well, it seems you ended up with the most meaningful one.
For me, that was the most meaningful one, yeah.
Yeah, what a great story. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I think you win the prize for the most meaningful item that people have brought on the show. Like, seriously, that's the thing that we're looking for when we're asking someone to bring something that's meaningful to them. And I imagine maybe one day you may pass it on.
I may. Well, yeah, most likely I will pass it on to my kids. But it's not something like... I thought about wearing it when I got it, but I feel like it's something more valuable than that, where I would just keep away and have something to go back to look at,
Sure.
Just to remind me of my parents.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for bringing that. Thank you for sharing it.
No, thank you.
So I can see that you have this respect, reverence towards your father, what he's done for your family. I'm interested to know how that carries on into what you're doing now and the man that you become. But let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Warmouth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back with Vinh Truong. Vinh, before the break, you were sharing your item of significance with us and our listeners, and I want to get into how you've taken those lessons or things that you learned in your journey into what you're doing now. But before we get into that, we're going to ask 2 questions from this card game, Like You Cards. You can choose to answer one or both or none, so no pressure. There should be fairly lighthearted questions. Okay. Question number 1: do you like traveling solo or with a group? And question number 2, did you go to your senior prom?
I'll answer question number 2 first. I didn't go to mines, but I went to others.
Okay.
I was asked, 2 others, I was asked to be somebody else's date to their senior prom, but I didn't go to mines.
What school?
One was, I think, Canoga High School, and the other one was like West Covina High School or Nogales High School or something like that.
Okay.
It's so long ago, I forgot. But what's funny is that I was cleaning out some of my stuff, and I see one of those old prom pictures. And yeah, it was funny. Brought back.
Was it in like a black folder thing, and you're holding?
Yes, you know exactly.
Did they have a boutonniere?
I didn't have one, but yes, it did.
Or corsage and boutonniere.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know exactly what it was. I'm sure you have.
I do. Yes. Too. Did you have long bangs in this?
I absolutely, okay. I did.
Awesome.
Traveling, depending on where it is, but I do like to travel with the group. For me, it's more fun, but I know how hectic and crazy it is to be able to coordinate with like 5 or even 10 different people and in one place. But the conversations that you have when you're traveling with a group, I think those are some of the things that you remember for a long time. When you're in your own, you have a lot of, internal thoughts and you're always thinking back in certain times and so on and so forth. But those are its own memories that you build. But traveling, especially to new places with the group, to me was really, really fun and really interesting because you get to have those conversations back and forth. Everybody's perspective of certain things is so different from each other, and you get to hear why people like where you're at, and it's totally different from why you like it. So
sure. Scott?
So as far as travel, I would travel alone more than with a group. Certainly a small group of people that I already know, and small, I would like that. I wouldn't tend to join a tour group or anything like that.
Did you go to senior prom?
No, I didn't. In fact, I didn't go to a single dance in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I didn't socialize.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's something I'd never heard before. Never gone to a dance.
Never went to a dance. Never went to a football game. Never went to any. I played on the basketball team. I went to basketball games, but I didn't socialize. I'm antisocial. That was what was good about the pandemic.
Well, I definitely would like to travel with a group. I kind of enjoy hiking though on my own sometimes, only because I can stop when I want, I can go fast when I want. But traveling for sure in a group. I do a lot of traveling though alone, and it kind of sucks. Well, traveling to get somewhere rather than like the destination. So that's it's always kind of grueling being by myself. And I did go to my senior prom. I went to 3 proms, all with the same girl over 3 years.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So she was a senior, I was a junior. I was a sophomore, she was a junior, and I went to her. She was in charge of the senior prom as a junior. So I went there, and then as a senior, she asked me, and then I was like, okay, you go to my senior prom. And so that's kind of like stunned. Yeah. Actually, just looking back, there was so much money, so much money.
yeah.
And for a kid who's not working, and it was probably a lot for my mom. Yeah.
That's probably why I didn't go to mines. And when I was asked, they decided, just don't worry about it. I got it. And just come. I was like, okay, sure.
But things have really changed now. Okay, so like what? You had to buy a boutonniere and a corsage, and you had to rent a tux and shoes and all that, right? And some people, maybe they splurged on a limo and got together or something. And then there's the tickets, and then maybe you go eat after, right? But now kids, they have to put on this elaborate asking of prom. Have you seen these things?
I've seen it on social media.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Yeah.
So could you imagine like that you had to go to the lengths of what people, ask a woman to marry them, but there's this whole event just to ask them for a prom, and it gets recorded and you're judged by it and it's put on social media. Wow. Yeah. It's a different time.
Very elaborate. I guess they're prepping them for when they really pop the big question.
Yeah.
What pressure? That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But anyway. So back to you, Vin. Where does your journey go after your experience, making all this money, running this team, doing your telemarketing thing?
After that, running my team, I stayed in the industry for about another 2 years. But I went on to work with one of the largest companies at the time, and we still know them today, AT&T. That's when they had a lot of landlines, and I worked with them, and that was, I remember this time very well. I did really well working there. It was AT&T, their office, the building that I worked at was right directly on Hollywood and Vine, right across the street from the Pantages Theater. You'd walk outside. I think I was pretty close to like Bruce Lee's Star. We'll walk down to grab lunch and stuff like that. So at that, I spent about 3 years at AT&T. And that was right before cell phones started becoming a little cheaper, where people were able to kind of acquire cell phones, and then cell phone minutes and long distance minutes were kind of included in the package you got. So what that meant for me is we kind of saw that the industry that I was in, it was kind of dying out because the cell phones were taking over. From there, I went into,
I have a question on that going back. Is there such a thing as long distance minutes now?
No. There used to be.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Not anymore.
There is no long distance, is there?
No.
Yeah.
I don't even think there's such a thing as buying minutes anymore, because I think everything is just unlimited and you're paying for your service now.
Mm.
It's very, it's bringing me back.
Yeah.
Pretty far. But from there, I went on to work a couple of things. I went to retail, worked at Marshall's in Monrovia. I worked at for a little bit, probably about a year, a little bit less than a year. Went on to work with my buddy's company. It was e-commerce. During that time, e-commerce was becoming a big thing. What they sold and did on e-commerce was women's wear and footwear, and that was huge. We'd go down to Fashion District downtown LA to pick up the latest and greatest knockoffs of stuff you see in a magazine, bring it back, take pictures, post it online on their website, eBay. Amazon wasn't really prevalent back then, but it was all eBay and your own website that you would create. And from there, I would be in a warehouse picking orders and kind of helping out, and I was doing that for quite a while. Then I decided to kind of spread my wings. Like, I didn't want to be in a warehouse anymore. So I left and I got into the jewelry business. Downtown LA in the jewelry district, I worked for this company called Nelson Jewelry. It was a big wholesaler, manufacturer, Chinese company. And I did that for about 1.5 years. It was right after 9/11 that I got into that business and learned quite a few things about jewelry, how they call it the 4 C's, the cut, the carats, the clarity. And I forgot what the other one was, but I got kind of comfortable looking at, diamonds and mountings and stuff like that. And the funny thing about that job, it was so dangerous. And to this day, I think they still carry and go to clients this way. Is there's a show, we'll pack the stuff up, and we'll bring it over to the central jewelry district building, and they would I wouldn't say FedEx, but it was a carrier that specialized in shipping the jewelry to the shows. But when we would go to clients throughout the U.S., throughout the state, I've been New York, Florida, Wisconsin, Chicago. The place I went to, and when we would go to these places to see our client to sell the pieces, it's literally backpacks full of jewelry. And we'll slap it on our backs, jump on the plane, get off the plane, rent the car, throw it in the trunk, and throw it in the back seat, whatever it is, and that thing was on us all the time. So there was this time that we had a trip set for San Antonio, Texas. And we got there late afternoon, so we didn't see any clients. settled in our room at the hotel, got our rest, mapped out our day the next day. Woke up in the morning, jumped in the car, went to go see our first client. Was this Rolex dealer in San Antonio. It was a quick drop off. Got back into the car. And I kind of noticed there was this SUV that I saw more than one time, and so I thought none of it because I'm not from around here. I don't know what goes on, but I just have to be aware of how I get out of this place. It's strategic to kind of not go in a straight line. We would make lefts and rights and, just to see who and what would be following us. And lo and behold, there was nobody following us that I could see. And so it was lunchtime. We're not allowed to get out of the car and go grab lunch, but we were allowed to go to the drive-thru and grab lunch. So we stopped at a Wendy's, got drive-thru. And as soon as we were pulling out of the Wendy's drive-thru, we got trapped in by an SUV and a car behind us. Because we decided to park the car real quick, grab our burgers, get it ready to drive and eat at the same time.
Wow.
And as I was reaching down to my partner, I was driving, my partner was in the passenger seat. I was reaching down to grab some napkins. My window got bashed, his window got bashed. Put your head down, don't look up. Pop the trunk, pop the trunk, pop the trunk. I was like, whoa. I looked up, I don't know. Luckily, nothing happened to me, right? So my partner, he's the veteran. He's like, just do what he says. It's not our stuff. We work, but it's insured. It's not our stuff. Just pop the trunk. So I popped the trunk. They took everything in the back seat, our laptops, everything. Plus, I think it was like, it's well over $500,000 of jewelry in there. It was 2 backpacks full.
Wow.
And left, gone. We were on the news in San Antonio.
Wow.
But it was only local news. It wasn't like, statewide news. But we were questioned. And
Did you know the value of what you were carrying?
Yeah, we had to do inventory. And I was that guy because I was the rookie. I had to do the count and inventory of what we sold, dollar amount, value, and everything. So I think it was a little less than $1 million. It's about $800-something thousand.
Wow.
Yeah. We're trays and trays of jewelry.
That's an industry that really is still run by old world standards, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think they might have changed it a little bit, but I think they still travel very similar from the way I was traveling when they go see their clients out of state.
Yeah, they just have their old habits, customs, and
if you really think about it, the margin for that type of merchandise, even though it's a high value, the margin wasn't that much.
Oh yeah.
So they would have to kind of find ways to be able to, keep that margin. So it was just putting the individuals at risk to carry it. And I mean, some places are smart now. They'll just mail it out to their destination they're going to.
Well, a few months ago, or maybe last year, there was a big truck robbery, a Brinks truck robbery of jewelry. And yeah, it seems that it was planned. It happened up, I think, near on the Grapevine.
Okay.
In that area.
Okay.
But it was planned. But yeah, like they know where every piece of jewelry goes. It's tracked around the world.
It is. It's so odd. It's crazy. Yeah. And you said it seemed like it was planned, and to what happened to me seemed like it was planned too. But I say, like, nobody knows where we're going except the people that worked in our company. And I guess these guys got so good because a lot of times, they're Colombians who kind of scout the jewelry industry. And I guess they got so good at spotting out what's what and being able to scout the jewelry stores and who comes out of there. Especially you got guys coming out with backpacks, it's like, oh yeah, they must be jewelry.
Should be obvious.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you had to get cleared so they know it was like an inside thing. Yeah,
I got questioned, got information, and I've never heard anything about it ever since.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very odd.
It's a very closed world, isn't it?
It is a very closed world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Vin, we're running short on time here, and I want to get into, how you got into public service. I got into public service when I started my career in insurance. I started my career in insurance in 2016, 17. 2015, my dad passed away of cancer in December. That 2015 was when I had my son in October. So 3 months after my son was born, my dad passed away.
And being in that immigrant family, they knew nothing about legacy planning, final expenses, none of that stuff. So fortunately for my dad, he kept a little bit of savings. He had 8 kids, so me and my siblings, we all put out money to take care of the final expenses, funerals, and all that stuff. As I was going through that process with my dad, I kind of took a step back to look at myself. I had my son was only 3 months old. My family's brand new. I didn't want anything like that to happen to my wife and my son. And so I jumped online to look at life insurance policies, and I got a phone call from New York Life. And I thought they were just answering my inquiries, but they saw my resume and wanted me to come in for an interview. So I did 4 interviews with them. They decided to bring me on, took me through that whole study, passed the test, and I became an agent. And during the time of being an agent, they really talk about community service and kind of making yourself seen around your community and putting yourself out there, be volunteer, join what is it called, the chamber. So I was doing certain things like that. And then my city was hosting an event at a local park that I kind of grew up in. And I called the number to become a vendor, kind of grab a booth and wanted to inquire about that. And I called that number. The mayor at that time was late Zaido Paras-Karachi. She went to school with my brother and sister. So when she saw my last name, she's like, I know you. I'm just like, she's like, your brother's this, your sister's this, your neighbor. And I was like, oh, you really do know me. She's like, yeah, okay, here. And I got the booth and everything like that. And then from that day, I don't know what it is that she saw in me, but she saw something in me before I even knew I had it in me. She was priming me and succession planning me to get me into be very involved with our city. She introduced the Economic Development Commission to me. So in 2018, I joined Duarte Economic Development Commission. And then in 2019, I was part of an ad hoc committee for our Measure H, the the taxes increase. And then in 2020, end of 2019, throughout that whole time, she's like, oh, you'd be great public service. Think about running. I was like, I don't have any aspirations to do that. Then council member John Fasana, he's very well known in San Gabriel Valley, was retiring because his election year was coming up in 2020. So he reached out to me and said that I was highly referred by Zaido. He thinks I'd be a great fit. I took me about 3 weeks to think about it, and I then agreed to do it because I want to set a good example for my kids, be able to make sure that the city I grew up in continues to thrive and my kids have a good place to grow up.
Yeah. And so now you're a council member in Duarte, and next year you'll be mayor.
Yes.
How are you feeling about that responsibility?
It's a big responsibility, I would have to say. Although we're in districts in the city of Duarte, our population is anywhere given 21,000 to 23,000 people. I feel the responsibility is a little bit more when you're a mayor because you have that many people's to hear, to look after, to make sure that you're doing a good thing for. Being just a council member, you worry about your districts, which is, at any time 2,000-3,000 people. But being a mayor, you got 20-something thousand people that you have to make sure you're doing the right thing for. So it's a little bit added extra responsibility. Of course, you have to show up a little bit more at events, speak a little bit more. I might hire a speech coach too, because I'm not really good at public speaking. So when I got into this position, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a big responsibility, but it seems like it's going to be exciting and also, fun and rewarding for you because this is the city that, you grew up in. I'm curious, what would you say Duarte is most known for?
Duarte is most known for City of Hope.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Yes.
Right.
City of Hope, the largest, I guess, one of the renowned cancer clinic research facilities. Duarte's best known for that, for City of Hope. And then, as you mentioned and alluded to earlier, Bradbury is adjacent to Duarte. You have to get through Duarte to get to Bradbury.
Right.
A lot of affluent individuals in Bradbury. We kind of to me, it's kind of the same city, but they're on its own. But Duarte is known for City of Hope, and the other thing that we really pride ourselves on is Duarte on Huntington Drive. That is Route 66.
Ah, yes.
And we have a Route 66 parade at the same time we celebrate the anniversary for Duarte in September. And this year, my colleagues and I we were able to we voted on creating a Route 66 monument for the city of Duarte.
I see.
So those are some of the things that I look forward to.
I can't believe I forgot City of Hope, but you also have a new farmers market.
Yes.
And Old Spaghetti Factory.
Old Spaghetti Factory.
Haunted. By some people think it's haunted.
It is. My sister used to work there. So
okay.
It is.
And a golf course.
Haunted by your sister?
No, maybe. No. It's haunted. She told me a couple stories about closing time when she used to close there, and so that is the historical building in Duarte. The late great friend of mine who got me in this position, she walked and petitioned to keep that historical building. It used to be a school district. It used to be.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Right by the Carmack, right by the schoolhouse. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The other thing that people don't know about the city of Duarte, so Dequino, I think the winery, they are in city of Duarte as well. I'm just learning this stuff this recent year. They're one of the largest distributors for Trader Joe's in their wine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Diaquino or Diquino or something like that. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, we hope to learn a little bit more about you and the San Gabriel Valley in this next segment.
So, Vin, what would you identify as 3 really memorable places or activities that you've been involved in the San Gabriel Valley?
I mentioned earlier I would go with my parents to do shopping down here. So a big staple for me is Hawaii Supermarket, which is right down the street. Right down the street. Yeah. I think every Saturday or Sunday I would spend at least an hour or so there. Yeah,
that's right here in San Gabriel. Is there another Hawaii Supermarket, or is that the only one?
I think that's the only one.
That's it.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Yeah, that's been here a while. So you would go there.
Yes.
Not to Monterey Park. Huh?
No, it would be there. Yeah. Before it would be Monterey Park. It would be the Hong Kong Supermarket right on Garfield. Mm-hmm. But when they opened the Hawaii Supermarket here, we would come here into that.
Okay.
Hawaii, I mean, that's iconic, I think, for San Gabriel Valley, right?
Yeah.
But the parking,
horrible.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But then once you survive the parking lot, going inside, so this is my experience in there, people treat you like to ram you with their cart,
really,
and as if you're not there, or you're some sort of competitor for shopping.
Mm-hmm. Really,
that's been my experience going there. So I don't go there for those reasons, but I know everybody's like, oh, go to Hawaii, Hawaii Supermarket.
I was just there actually a couple of weeks ago because they had a whole big sale on crab. It was like $4.99 a pound, and I had to go.
So I was going to go there for that reason,
really?
But I didn't go because I didn't want to get beat up.
It was crowded. I was lucky. I was in line and I was able to get some crab, but there was a lot of people there for that sale.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about a second place? Or
I would say it's not here anymore, but I remember going with my dad and my siblings to the movie theaters, the Chinese movie theaters. I forgot which one. I forgot what it was called, but there was one on Garfield and Valley, right on the corner of Garfield and Valley. It was very old, and I was there for a long time. And then they had a new one on Valley and Del Mar, right next to the 99 Ranch Plaza, the Focus Plaza. We would go there every time it was a movie star or an actress that my mom or my dad liked, and that would be the only exposure to the big screen that they can catch, right? And they wouldn't have to wait until it gets on a DVD for them to buy it to see it. So we would go there and watch the movies there at the movie theaters.
What language would they be in?
It would be in Cantonese.
So your parents spoke Cantonese and Vietnamese?
Yes. Cantonese. My mom is Cantonese and my dad is Chu Chao. That's another
so
dialect.
Do they speak Chao Chao too?
Yeah, I spoke a little bit Chao Chao, and I spoke Cantonese predominantly and understood.
How's your Mandarin?
I can understand it. I can probably say a couple words. My wife is a lot better at it than I am, but I wouldn't be able to hold a conversation.
And a third place?
A third place, and it's been there quite a while. Not too long, but I was just there having lunch now. It's my nephew's in-laws restaurant right here in Valley, right across the old Howard's. It's called right across from Hawaii Supermarket. It's called Nha Trang, the Vietnamese noodle bông bò huê place.
Okay.
My nephew's in-laws own that. And prior to my nephew marrying their daughter, I used to go there and eat their chicken pho. And once they ran out, that was it. So it's very highly touted.
Did you ever go to Nha Trang? No, you're not from Vietnam. Yeah, right.
I'm not, but
it's a beach. It's a beautiful beach town.
Yes, I when I was 16, my parents took me back to Vietnam.
Okay.
And we did go to a beach. I don't know if it was Nha Trang, but we did visit some of the beaches and some of the villages that my parents lived in. It was a great experience.
South, central, or north?
South. My mom's family was in Ho Chi Minh City. My dad was a few hours north of the city. But when they got together, and my brothers and sisters, they lived a few miles away from Ho Chi Minh City. So it was pretty much around that area.
What's the name of the restaurant again?
Nha Trang. It's Quan Ngo Q.
I see it.
Yeah.
And what are they known for?
They're bông bò huê.
Okay.
Bông bò huê. The bông miru is good too. They have this awesome passion fruit peach iced tea that they mix up, and their coffee is really good.
Wow, a bowl of bông bò huê is a lot more than it used to be.
A lot more than it used to be, yeah.
Wow.
Definitely.
But a lot less than it will be in the future.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I've got to try that. I want to try that.
Yeah, it's right down the street from here.
Awesome. Well, Vin, thank you so much for coming on our show and for sharing your story with us, bringing your item and everything that you shared with our listeners. If someone wants to get in touch with you, contact you, or support you in things that you're doing in the future, what's the best way to do that?
Best way to get a hold of me is the email through the city. Vinh Truong at accessduarte.com is my email address. Vin214 is my Instagram handle. You'll see me post a lot of my profession, real estate, insurance. That's what I do. So I'm all about educating, and I think for our community, as far as the Asian community, I think that's something that we're lacking in the insurance industry, the education. So that's what I volunteer a lot of my time to that, and I'm also a part of the LA County Asian American Employees Association. I'm an associate member because my sisters and brothers are LA County employees, and they're part of the association. I donate a lot of my time to do a lot of the community service work and advocacy work that they do to bring light to a lot of the Asian public service workers.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Vin, thank you again. We appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
And I wish you much success in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. Another insight into one of our very own people here in the SGV. I really am touched by the story of the item. I'm moved by these things that are very deeply touching and emotional. And I really appreciate when guests can come and share and make that meaningful to you as well as a listener. So if you like this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to like and share. And you can find our full back catalog of episodes on our website, sgvmasterkey.com. And until next week, we'll see you then.
You've been listening to the SGV Master Key Podcast. Our passion is the small businesses and the people that make up the San Gabriel Valley, and it's our honor to have them on the show. We hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like, rate, and review. The show is produced by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on the SGV Master Key Podcast.
Master, no, kind of master.